Hello, Comcast subscribers. Now, I'm going to delve into something here that was really aggravating me about Comcast. I've just recently had to call a technician to my house because I couldn't get online for about 3, maybe 4 days. I couldn't figure it out. The modem was working fine, or it was well. Let me take that back. It's been for a couple of months, at least a month or two, where the signal would just go out for no reason. And I could reach back there and wiggle the wire where the splitter is coming out of the wall. You could wiggle that just a little bit, and it would pick the signal back up. And it might work for 15 minutes. It might work for the rest of the day or night. It was just weird. And I couldn't make heads or tails of it. So eventually, I got me a splitter and swapped that out, and it worked fine for a whole day. And then it went right back to doing the same thing. I said, well, it's not the splitter. A couple of days later, I changed the cables, all 3 of the cables. It worked fine for a day. Went right back to doing the same thing. Luckily for me, I had a backup modem that Comcast had sent me last year that I never connected. They were probably charging me for the damn thing that I wasn't paying attention to. But anyway, I finally said, you know what? I'll bust the cover on that thing and hook it up. It worked fine all of last weekend. And then somewhere around late Sunday night, wee hours Monday morning, it just quit. I mean, it went back to where the power light would be on and the second light would be blinking. I think it's the US/DS light or something. And it just would not establish a signal. You could leave it there all day. It will not establish a signal. Sometimes it will, but it'll go right back out. And it was just weird. I didn't understand it. So I was dreading having to call a technician. I did not want to have to call them. I had enough problems with them. I wanted to strangle the whole tech department because they ever since they went to that 3-call policy garbage, I had nothing but problems and turned into a giant nightmare. When it first started, when they first went to this 3-call policy, their technicians' phone calls would show up in the caller ID as Comcast. Well, that only happened like once. And from then on, it went to Privacy Director. And I'm one of these type people, if I don't recognize the area code, because I don't have any family all over the world and all over the United States, if I don't recognize the area code, then I may not answer it. That's just the way I am. I'm tired of salesmen. I'm sick of them. But anyway, so they'd call. And I'd be like, where was the tech? I call the agent back, the 1-800 Comcast number, and I said, how come your agent didn't show up? I mean, your technician. And they'd say, well, they called 3 times. Nobody answered. And I was like, oh, crap. I said, well, what about the Comcast on the caller ID? Sometimes it won't be Comcast. And I was like, oh, that's what it was then. So anyway, once I figured all that out, and this was a couple years ago now, I started, when I knew I had an appointment with a technician, if I saw Privacy Director, I answered it. But there was sometimes, like when you're in the bathroom or you're distracted, maybe you're cooking something, or maybe you had to walk outside to get the newspaper or something, and you didn't take the cordless phone or something with you, and you hear the phone ringing, and you try to get to it, you didn't get to it. So you miss one of the phone calls. Well, there would not be a second or third phone call. I've seen them where they would call twice. I didn't miss the first 2 phone calls, no third. And then, about 1.5 years ago, when I finally just about washed my hands with them, I didn't call them for 1.5 years. I was like, I am not calling a technician unless the cable and the internet are completely out. Completely. Because they called 3 times. I was sitting in the recliner watching TV. Had the phone right next to me. I answered all 3 phone calls. As a matter of fact, the first 2 phone calls I answered in between the second and third ring. And the call would immediately drop. As soon as I said hello, it would go, and I'm going, did he just hang up on me? The first time I thought it was a fluke. The second time when he did it, I said, wait a minute. That first one, I'll let you slide on that one, but that second one, now you're making me look like a fool here. I said, I bet you he's going to do it on the third time. I bet he just has no intention to come out here. Maybe he has to go across town and he doesn't want to have to do it. But that's kind of strange because you're at work. I mean, if you don't want to do any work, then why'd you even show up? But I digress. So the third phone call came. This time I decided to flip the script on the guy. So I answered it right after the first ring. Hello? And I could hear him fumbling around, and then all of a sudden the call ended. So it was a few seconds that the phone calls were, the two phones were connected. And it wasn't immediately right when I said hello, and it was a few seconds. I could hear him fumbling around with something like he had pulled the phone away from his head or his ear and was searching for that end button. And when it ended, I said, "You SOB. You going to do this to me now?" So I called up the agent at Comcast, and I think it was the same woman I had made the appointment with a few days earlier. And I talked to her, and I said, "Look, ma'am, this guy has just called me 3 times. It's one of your technicians. And he has hung up on me all 3 times." She said, "Well," or I didn't say that he'd hung up. I said that the phone call had dropped or he's hanging up on me or something. I said both. So I didn't want to point fingers just at that point to her. And I didn't want to bite her head off. Or some people would. They go into like a feeding frenzy, like a shark feeding frenzy. They just bite everything. And I'm not one of those type. It wasn't her that stood me up. It was the technician. So I'm going to direct my anger and frustration at that particular individual that really pissed me off. So I told her what the situation was, and she said, "Well, according to my computer, he's still scheduled to come out your way." And I said, "I doubt he's going to show up since he didn't talk to me." So I got off the phone with her, and I sat, and I didn't really make myself wait. I was like, if I got something else I got to go do, I'm going to go do it, because he ain't going to show up. He's just not going to do it. But I wanted to have proof that he didn't, to myself. I wouldn't have, like, written proof or him, photographic or video proof that he didn't show up. But I proved it to myself. But the whole time I was sitting there just fuming and blood boiling and everything. Eventually I calmed down, and it was later that day. I'd say the appointment for that particular time was maybe either 10 to 12 when I had to wait for him to call me, or it was 12 to 2. I can't remember. But anyway, it was around 5 or 5:30 that afternoon. I said, "I'm going to call him. Now that I've calmed down some, I'm going to call and let them know that technician did not show up." And he did call 3 times, and I did pick up all 3 phone calls. So this time I was talking to a black man. And I went and I told him the whole story. I told him that the first phone call I felt like was a fluke. The second phone call, I'm beginning to wonder. And then when he did it to me the third time, I knew the gig was up. And he said, and I told him, I said, "I think they're abusing the 3-call system." He said, "Oh my God, I hope they're not." He said, "This isn't gonna be good." And I said, "I know. It's making you guys at Comcast look bad when these technicians won't show up at addresses for whatever reason." And he said, "Well, I can understand where you're coming from." He said, "But man, I hope they're not doing that." I said, "Well, you need to find out, if you can, just find out who it was that was supposed to come out to this address, and maybe somebody needs to have a little talk with him. Just find out, because I did answer the phone. I was sitting right by the phone the whole time. And I don't know whether he got reprimanded or even talked to. I have no idea. And I told him, I said, if I ever call ever again, do not send that guy. But I'd never know whether they'd send him or not, because they didn't send me a picture of him. Here's the guy that didn't show up, and they didn't give me his name or give me his phone number, so I don't know. I'm not answering that phone. I'll tell him to get somebody else immediately. But anyway, I didn't like that 3-call policy. I thought that, I felt like that some of those technicians were abusing the system, and I believe they were. And if you don't want to do work, then why did you go to work today? Is it all about making the dollar bills, y'all? Because you've got to do some work to get that. I mean, even a prostitute has to do work to get the money. So, I mean, think about it. Anyway, that's all I got to say about Comcast. The technician, I will say this. I can't knock Comcast right now. I didn't have the 3-call thing happen this time. And the technician, he was pretty cool. He actually came back. He couldn't fix it at first. He came back later on and fixed it. And it turned out it was a cable outside that had gone bad, and that's the reason why it wasn't getting a good signal. Since then, it's been going pretty good, but at least it wasn't a nightmare. Now I'll probably call them again the next time I have problems. But Jesus, for those few years that they had that 3-call policy, it was just a nightmare. I'm just wondering if anybody else had that problem. I even posted it on Facebook on their own. Actually, it was on Comcast website. I just blurted it out there. But anyway, hate on Comcast if you want to. Like them, don't like them, be indifferent. It doesn't really matter. I've been with Comcast for a while, and they usually did okay. You know, it usually worked. But when they went to that 3-call policy, some of those technicians, I think, just took advantage of it. And you know, I think Comcast needs to be able to monitor if those are issued out phones. They need to be able to monitor those phones. And if that person called and somebody said hello, they need to see that person said hello. And why did you hang up on them? But anyway, I digress. And that was pretty much my hatred for the 3-call policy that Comcast did. I hope they don't still have it. I don't feel like they still have it, but maybe it's because I answered the phone and I actually talked to somebody and they didn't hang up on my ass. But anyway, peace out, people.